Caleb Williams cried in his mommy's arms after losing again. Is he too soft to play in the NFL? Let's talk about it.
FanBuzz Weekly starts now.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to FanBuzz Weekly. I'm your host, Patrick, with my co-hosts Tyler and Will, and we're breaking down the biggest stories, the hottest takes in college football. But before we start, don't forget to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter. You don't want to miss those things. The links are in the description for anyone that wants to go do that. Okay, we're gonna get down to it. We're gonna start with maybe one of the more controversial things that happened over the weekend. I'm talking USC. I'm talking Caleb Williams. First of all, USC is borderline dumpster fire right now. They're out of the top 25 for the first time in the Lincoln Riley era. You know, they fired their defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. And now Caleb Williams is being called soft for jumping in the stands, crying in his mother's arms. I want to know what you guys think. You know, was this a moment where he looked quote unquote soft, or do you sort of appreciate him showing emotion? Let's start with Tyler here.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. But I think the biggest thing of all is I'm thinking about this from an NFL lens, right? You know, at this point, USC's season is done. I don't think they're going to, go anywhere beyond some crappy bowl game. But from an NFL scout perspective, a lot of people have a lot of criticisms about him because he's such an off-script playmaker. Struggled inside the pocket. We had a lot of fumble issues. But now we're hearing Robert Mathis. And again, I'm an Indianapolis guy. Hearing Robert Mathis, of all people, call Caleb Williams soft stings a little bit, because I think one of the biggest things I've been trying to look at Caleb Williams is, how's he going to respond to all this adversity? Does he care about the program? Does he care about playing football? Does he love the game? Because that's what you want from the potential number one overall pick. And to me, I don't think that's soft. I just think he cares about the program. I need to see a guy that loves football. I need to see that he cares, especially if I'm going to take him with the number one overall pick. Clearly, there's some other issues besides whether or not he's soft, which, again, I do not think is the case, that are going to make him have some questions going into the NFL draft. But to call him soft because he cares and is emotional in such a big moment in a big game in such a tough season for the Trojans, I can't get there. I think that's a little harsh, especially on a kid.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Although, first of all, I want to say I'm very sad that Alex Grinch got fired before December, because I can't make any jokes about the Grinch stealing Christmas or anything like that. It's just one of the few things I wanted to get out of this USC team. But yeah, thank you. You're an inept one, Mr. Grinch. But anyways, as to Caleb, I could not agree more with Tyler. The kid has been called literally everything in the book. The questions have been, does he care enough? Does he have one foot in the NFL? And now we're saying he's too emotional. It's a kid his career is now over at USC. His career is being called one of the biggest wastes of all time. He didn't even win a conference championship. It's understandable. I like to see that he cares about what's going on with the team, with his legacy. And frankly, I'll take it over the apathy that you've seen from some guys in the past. Like Trevor Lawrence looked like he was just clocking into his 9-to-5 and leaving, whether Clemson won a national championship or got knocked out in unceremonious fashion by Ohio State. It just looked like another day at the office for him, and it translated to the NFL. I have not seen that edge in Trevor other than one half of football against the Los Angeles Chargers and Brandon Staley. So I'm happy with it. I mean, you need to be able to control your emotions in such a way that, while the game is going on, you're zoned in and playing your best football. But after the final whistle, I have no problem with it. It's a dramatic picture. It's a dramatic look for sure, but I'm glad to see he cares.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Jay Cutler? Will, you and I are familiar with him based on our NFL fandoms, but is that what you want? Do you want the guy that just doesn't care and gets memes of cigarettes in his mouth because he always looks bored? Like, I want the guy that cares about football.
Speaking of memes, I'm going to go back to Tim Tebow crying after the 2009 SEC championship game when Alabama broke him. Like, if anything, and I'm comparing Caleb Williams to Tim Tebow, the greatest college quarterback of all time, there's no debate. It's exactly what we're talking about here. It's a positive thing. It means the guy cares more than anyone on the frickin' field. The only thing I'll say is that he's probably smart that there was a sheet of paper over his face so he doesn't get memed into oblivion like Tim Tebow did, because that was the hottest meme in sports for quite some time. I thought it was a little weird after, I don't know if you guys saw the quote about him saying he just wants to go home to his dog. watch a TV show. I was like, I don't know if that's really the right thing to say after a crushing loss like that. That almost seemed a little bit dejected, but I think he had already done all his outpouring of emotion, his sort of crying, getting it out. And at that point, he's like, I just need my dog, man. I need my dog. So like,
dude, he's never been more relatable than that. That's all I've been a part of some devastating losses, man. And sometimes you're just done with football and you just want to get your mind off of it.
Yeah, just hug a dog, de-stress. I totally get it. I mean, we're all sort of on the same page there. For people that are calling them soft, what are we talking about? Like, guys can't cry, guys can't show emotion. Like, come on, what year is it? Moving into the SEC, LSU got crushed by Alabama, which was actually a really, really good display of quarterbacking, in my opinion. Watching those two dudes run was next level. Their CFP hopes are all but over. Jaden Daniels putting his body on the line. Of course, there's a big, big controversial hit that Dallas Turner had. Some people thought it was targeting. Some people thought it wasn't. Now he's in concussion protocol. I'm talking about Jaden Daniels. Do you guys think this was a dirty hit? And then bigger than that, do you guys think college football has a targeting problem? Let's start with Will here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was a dirty hit. Definitely not like ejection worthy, which is what targeting implies. He came in. It definitely wasn't a late hit in any capacity, and it wasn't blind. I don't know if I would call Jaden defenseless, other than the fact that he was going through his motion. He had his eyes in the right direction. He had every ability to know that was coming. But the thing is, football does have a targeting problem, and I'm not saying it's called too often. I'm not saying it's called too rarely. It feels way too random. On the aggregate, I think the number is about right. You see targeting about as often as you should, but the consistency is awful. I have no idea when they go to review what's actually going to happen, regardless of what I feel. And sometimes it happens in some really big moments. I'm not going to get into the Michigan TCU one at the end of the semifinal last season, but I just never understand. And I don't think there's a bias or anything. I think the rule is terribly defined, and it makes it really hard to get it right every single time. So I do think there is a problem, but the problem is not that they fail to call it. Just in general, it's case by case.
I've got a couple points here. One, Dallas Turner really seems to be in a lot of plays that seem questionable that are knocking out quarterbacks. I've noticed that a few times over the past couple of years. But as far as the targeting problem, my coach brain has been turned on. Number one, kids need to wear their dang mouthpieces. I see too many of these things dangling, and it drives me insane. And when someone gets hit like this and they get concussed or have a jaw issue or something like that, I'm like, you got your mouthpiece dangling off your helmet, man. You got to put that thing in. But I think the larger point that really upsets me as a coach and just watching for these kids, I get that targeting exists, and I don't think we should get rid of it. I think that it is there for the safety of the game. However, ejecting kids for non-malicious hits is outright ridiculous. And the fact that they suspend kids in the second half for the next half of the next game does not make any sense to me. I think the fact that we kick out kids for plays that are clearly not intentional, especially if a ball carrier is dropping his head at the last second, all of your momentum's already going in a certain direction. You cannot change in the air. I think it is preposterous that we eject kids. If you want to keep the 15-yard penalties, it's fine by me. But to get kids kicked out of games, and especially to Will's point, it's random. You don't know if you're going to get kicked out. And for some of these kids, they're playing, 10, 15, 20 games in their entire college career. And most of these guys aren't playing in the NFL afterwards. There are very few precious times that they get to play on the field. And to eject kids randomly on things that are clearly not malicious, I think it's
Yeah, I don't know if you guys listened to the Paul Feinbaum show, but this was the biggest topic that there was yesterday. I listened to it all day because people are going back and forth. To say that he was doing it on purpose, it's like, what are we talking about? Was Nick Saban sanctioning the hit? Like, come on. Like, it's a rivalry game. Dudes are playing hard. And in football, a fast physical sport, it's tough to kind of control where exactly you're hitting a guy. You're going full speed at a quarterback. It's such a terrible judgment call sometimes that, like, when you look at replay in slow-mo, oh yeah, that looks like targeting, but in real time the dude's just moving fast, the dude's just playing the game. So yeah, I kind of agree with both of you guys here. I think either it needs to be more defined clearly to where we all know what is and isn't, because how long has this been going on here? Like this is years and years here that, like, we still don't know what targeting is. And no one seems to be able to figure it out, not even the NCAA. So, like, I don't even know what the answer is here at this point.
It's like the NFL's version of what is a catch.
I was going to say that. It feels like Des Bryant all over again. Yeah. That was a catch.
Nah, he didn't catch it. I'm not biased at all as a
Yeah.
Packers fan, as you can see in the background if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on from targeting, because we could probably talk about that all day. Oklahoma State got the last laugh in the final Bedlam series game against the Sooners. Sooners season looks pretty much dead at this point. But however, if we want to talk about rivalries that are ending, this one seems like a big one. We're going to be sad to see it sort of ending. Of course, with conference realignment next season, it's going to shake up a lot of these college football rivalries, and they're going to suffer. So which games do you guys think we need to keep alive? What is sort of like, what is going to happen from this? I'll start here. I don't know if you guys have seen that Penn State is sort of getting screwed by conference realignment and their rivalry games. I'm not even sure that they have a true rival. I'm not tuned into Penn State as much as some people are. But they're not going to be playing Michigan or Ohio State annually. And that's because the Big Ten declared like 11 protected rivalries. Penn State is in none of them, which just feels so cruddy if you're a Penn State fan, because I'm sure like you'd want to play those teams every season or not based on how your team's doing. But the one saving grace, I think, if there's a positive, is that Texas and Texas A&M playing again is going to be so fun. And as someone who lives in Austin, I'll tell you, everyone here hates Texas A&M. They hate College Station. Everything about the Aggies cult of a school that is going on over there, people hate it. So I'm ready for that hate. Let's start with Tyler here.
Yeah, one I'm actually really upset that we're losing, and I pray there's a way to bring it back, is the Apple Cup between Washington State and Washington. I don't know why, but I've always had a soft spot for these two schools. I just think they've produced a lot of fun offensive players over the years. I mean, I can think of those Jake Browning years at Washington with guys like John Ross and just so many playmakers on both sides of the ball for both of those teams. But more than anything, I just feel horrible for Washington State, a program that is, not leaving the Pac-12, but it's also dissolving, and they don't have a new conference to turn to. And this is like their big marquee game that they're just now losing. I have no idea what's going to happen to that program financially. I think there's just so many major ramifications, and I really hope they find a way to keep this alive. Because without this and without the Pac-12, I really don't know what the future holds for a program that, has really produced some studs over the years and has produced some points. So I'm just very worried about the future of some rivalry games like this.
Yeah, I've got a few, but first of all, yeah, that was my biggest one. Two of the most iconic West Coast venues. You've got the Palooza, you've got Husky Stadium. I do want to say I've been watching this whole saga with bated breath, and I want to give some credit to rivals that moved together. Texas and Oklahoma, safe. UCLA and USC, safe. My favorite team growing up, Stanford with Cal, safe. But there's a few that are in trouble. First of all, Bedlam will be back. People are calling it the final Bedlam game. It's the final annual Bedlam game. There's no way you can make me believe this won't be an out-of-conference type of situation. But then I've said for years, Michigan Notre Dame needs to become annual. It's a whole different thing. I mentioned I have the Apple Cup as my number one. Also, the Civil War between Oregon and Oregon State. Tyler mentioned Wazoo. Oregon State's the other team that's getting left out in the cold with the Pac dissolving. My favorite conference ever. And the last Civil War will be a really exciting one. It's another one that you have to imagine will get protected in some way or another, because Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, they're going to be looking to build an out-of-conference schedule that does not force them to travel much, considering how far they're going to be going east. So the Civil War is a natural one for Oregon to try and keep with no real rival in the Big Ten other than, I guess, UW's going to be the big one. But here's a little interesting one. This is a hybrid conference, non-conference one. The Triangle, Stanford, USC, and Notre Dame. They hate each other. They all play every single year. They alternate between having each other on rivalry week. Obviously, Stanford and USC were conference together. Now, none of these teams are in conferences together. I think you set up a rotation where Notre Dame plays like Stanford on even years, USC on odds. It's just a fun, anti-geographic rivalry between strong academic institutions that play winning football, although Stanford's fallen off a little bit. But I think those are games I look forward to, all three games in that triangle, and I would love to see them continue.
I want to give a quick little shout out to Oregon State. Holy crap. A year where you don't know what the future holds. 7-2, 12th in the latest AP poll. I mean, holy cow. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing that they have an offensive tackle that might be a top 10 pick. So I got to turn on Oregon State Beavers film. I'm looking forward to this, man. Good for them. I imagine that locker room is very tight-knit right now, going like, let's just go shock the world. I mean, losing out on this realignment stuff. I'm just very curious to see what happens to them.
Well, rest in peace to Dabo for letting DJ walk away and doing what he's doing.
Know.
Now he's got, the mess that is Clemson. I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think, because, you mentioned Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, it'll be back. But do you guys think rivalries lose their lusters if they're not every year? Because if Florida and Georgia played every 2 or 3 years, I'm just not as invested. It's not the same. Every year you look forward to that big matchup. Even if I know my team's going to get killed, I'm still like, no, this is our year. This is our year. We're going to beat them. So do you guys think it sort of loses it?
I'm going to go with the opposite here. Ooh. I'm a huge soccer guy. You can read my content on that when the time comes, but World Cup every 4 years, the stakes are freaking enormous because you're not going to get a chance to fire back at your rivals for 4 years or even more. I follow Italy. They've missed 2 World Cups in a row. They missed 2 World Cups in a row. It's getting a little bit ridiculous, and it just raises the stakes even more. Then on the other side of the coin, back in college football, Michigan, Notre Dame should be annual, but it's the fact that it's not. It was pouring rain in 40s last time Notre Dame came, and every single one of us, I was still a student, was at the Big House because that game is just that important. We don't get them every year, and you gain bragging rights for a decade. That's what the tagline was going into that game, and we were so juiced up, nothing could have stopped us from having 110,000 strong in that stadium. So I'm not for these games being less than annual, but I definitely think it gives each individual instance of it more juice.
See, I disagree just because I like the tradition of it. I like the yearly thing. And I get your point where, there can be some, World Cup rematches, but at the same time, those guys are pros that are playing for years and years. I like the idea of the yearly because it gives the underclassmen who maybe got beat the previous year a chance to prove themselves seniors. And again, it's just that yearly tradition of I have this to look forward to next year. Like, they got us this year, but next year we got them. It's just kind of the pageantry. And I think that's kind of what I love about college football is those.
I totally agree. And not to go back on the Dallas Turner hit, but I heard some LSU fans who were saying like, oh, don't worry. Next year, we're going to get them back. We're going to get them back for that hit. You don't have to wait 4 years. And the guys on the field who were part of that game in that hit can, if they want, get their lick back. Right. Like, so I kind of agree with Tyler there. Let's move on to take the over. We're not going to talk about any of my picks before this because I picked Iowa because I'm like,
stop picking Iowa, dude.
Surely Iowa is going to hit the over at some point, but nope. Would they score 7 or 10 points this past week? So I'm moving on. Iowa. I swear, if you actually hit it this time, I'm going to be mad when I don't pick you. I'm going to take Washington, Utah. This feels like the safest pick for me since I can't pick anything correctly here. So both of them are coming off 50-point games. I think the over-under was 50-something. I don't even remember what it was. That feels like a no-brainer to me. It's also at Washington, which feels like a better place to play than at Utah. Who do you guys have?
I actually have the under in that specific game, but
great.
We'll take a look at Pat. We'll take a look at your boys, Florida Gators playing LSU. That is an offensive juggernaut matchup. The total's only set at 63, which is high, but it's not crazy high. It's not like the 70s we've been seeing in the pack recently. The offenses are number 1 and number 26 by EPA. That's LSU and Florida, respectively. And the defenses are 130th and 79th. 130th. There's only 133 FBS teams. So we're talking like Sam Houston, Stanford, Akron, like someone of this group has a better defense than LSU. So LSU is going to score at will because they do every week. Florida will this week because LSU can't stop a nosebleed. So that's my over for the week. SEC being the gritty, hard-hitting football conference is kind of over. We'll see the Dallas Turner hits, but it's an offensive conference now. It's not a little Big 10, it's a big 12.
I mean, that lines up with what I'm picking because I'm saying in the SEC, I'm taking Tennessee, Missouri over 59.5. I have all the respect in the world for the Missouri Tigers this year after watching them against Georgia. Really hung in there against a college football playoff team. And the guy that I just think is an absolute weapon is Luther Burden III. 64 catches, 958 yards, 7 touchdowns this year. Just phenomenal production. That offense is really fun to watch. Very impressed. Incredibly mobile quarterback. And then obviously you have Joe Milton. You have this super spread out offense from Tennessee. I can just see absolute fireworks going on.
All right. Well, there you go. There are your 3 picks. You choose wisely if you're listening to us. If you are, good luck with your money. Let's move on to, did you see this? We're going to kind of go around college football and name something we saw, whether it was interesting, funny, whatever it may be. I'll start again here. I'm gonna talk about Jalen Green at James Madison. So Jalen Green was leading the nation in sacks at 15 and a half, and he actually had a shot to break Terrell Suggs' single season sack record of 24. Unfortunately, he's out for the season with a knee injury, but I feel like this dude still deserves some recognition here. And he's not getting recognition because the NCAA isn't giving James Madison recognition. So I feel like we need to talk about it a little bit because James Madison, first of all, they're not bowl eligible. They're moving from the FCS to the FBS. The NCAA denied their waiver earlier this year, I think because they want to keep things uniform when teams do this. But James Madison feels like an exception because they're actually really, really good. And the fact that none of these guys' stats are counting, like officially. So like Jalen Green, if you go on the NCAA's website, he's not on there. The number one dude in sacks is some dude named Trey Moore of UTSA, and he's 12. Like this dude, Jalen Green, was balling out, and it's almost like it's just not going to matter or count, which feels just wrong to me. So, yeah. Also, James Madison beat Virginia, who beat North Carolina. So, like, that's a thing.
I knew they weren't bowl eligible. I did not know their stats didn't count. That's the most preposterous thing I've ever heard. That makes no sense.
Go on the website. Like, it doesn't make any sense why we're not counting their stats, too. They're still playing NCAA football. Like, why are we not counting the stats?
Wow, that is annoying. I'm going to go with one that's not as fun. But I don't know, in case you didn't see, Texas A&M's Shamar Turner got ejected on Saturday for a very, very aggressive shot to the groin of an offensive tackle for Ole Miss. Got pancaked. The offensive tackle kind of stood over him. Turner's head was between the tackle's legs. He's just kind of standing there. Turner took exception to it and decided to throw a vicious uppercut into the guy's groin. I think the guy was wearing a cup. I'm going to be honest, because if that happened to me, I think I would have keeled over and cried on the ground for a while. But he seemed like he was okay. I don't know what's going to happen to that guy after getting ejected. If that ever happened in a game I was like an official of, that guy's going to jail or something. That really broke a lot of codes for me.
I think, have you ever seen Texas A&M's? It's called like the junk squeeze tradition. It's where all their like, dude, it's a thing. We have a literal article on it, but like they're yell leaders or whatever. They do this thing where they like squeeze their junk. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't think they're actually doing it to squeeze their junk. Maybe Turner was just kind of following tradition. Maybe he was just like, hey, let me teach you a tradition that we have here at A&M.
Definitely what it was. Because Texas A&M doesn't have any other weird traditions besides just
Will, what do you have?
Holy Lord, I think I'll stick with the Big Ten. My God, that's chilling. Anyways, my big moment's going to be in the Big Ten as well. I don't know if anyone watched Rutgers get absolutely robbed by Ohio State this week, but one of the worst backdoor covers I've ever experienced in my life. But Rutgers was in this game for a long time. They were winning at halftime, and how did they get there? A huge trick play. They were getting shut out while they were basically clamping the Ohio State offense, and they needed a spark. They had 4th and short. Gavin Wimsatt does a fumble rooski through his legs on 4th and short to Kyle Monungai, Essex County kid. Shout out. What a football player. Runs it like 50 yards. First 40-plus yard play Ohio State's given up all year. Gets it into field goal range. Knights didn't punch it in, and it's a big part of the reason they lost. They couldn't finish drives, but got them to their first score of the game. And if you have the chance to look up that Rutgers fumble rooski against OSU, it was a special moment. I was with my family this week. My mom went to Rutgers. We were all on the couch freaking out about the Knights. It was a good moment. Game did not end well, though.
I think the last time I've seen a fumble rooski was in like a youth league, little league football game.
Yeah, they called it a fumble rooski. It felt like almost a whole other thing. Like it wasn't like, oh, the ball's out. It was like the quarterback Wimsatt snapped it through his own legs. You gotta check this play out. It was pretty awesome.
Well, to be fair, Tyler, Rutgers was kind of like a youth football team for like how long? So
hey, they're good now, man.
Hey, this is their first bowl in 10 years.
That is fair. Yeah, more trick plays in football. We need like infinitely more trick plays, especially a legendary one like the fumble rooski. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's show. If you guys like the show, please like and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. You can also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. I don't even know all the places you can get it. Spotify, Apple, wherever you can get it, we're on it. Also, don't forget to check our newsletter. Like I said, the link is in the description, and we will see you guys next week. Reminder, I am Patrick. These are my co-hosts Tyler and Will, and there's also AJ in the back, who you guys don't see, but he is a big part of the production here. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Colorado's season was over in a flash. Honestly, look at this mask. It broke while I put it on. I'm so mad about that because this was expensive. Colorado's, they were over in a flash.